This is Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn Herbert, and I bring revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
The SCNC, Consortium, and APLM, formerly SCYL, three influential groups in the restoration quest of Ambazonia are teaming up to launch the Ambazonia Relief Fund, ARF. I am Innocent.
Ambazonia citizens should be resettled with the goal of reuniting families while the politricksters and warriors bring an end to the devilish enterprise of the butcher of Mvomeka. This is the monk.
Don't ask me to whisper who the winner of the Crown of Foolish is this week. Keep the dial right here on Ambazonia Calling. This is Veronique Vetimfe.
The states and governments are the only important actors in the United Nations, and that is why I call it United Nonsense, because it excludes the people.
This is
DONGA-MANTUNG.
ARC has partnered with Project 77 in calling for the government of Sierra Leone to condemn the ongoing conflict between La République du Cameroon and Ambazonia. I am Innocent.
Ambazonians know that freedom is not free. We must act like Mandela did, with discipline and in non-violence, except when imposed by the supreme duty of survival through self-defense.
It was another bloody week in Ambazonia, with growing reports that colonial Cameroon has turned to the use of chemical weapons and nerve agents to attack and kill civilians.
there is ample indication that the Republic of Cameroon is using chemical weapons.
We will return to these two stories in the course of this program. In the meantime, alarm bells are ringing, calling on the free world to pay more attention to the unfolding genocide in Ambazonia.
If anyone get this message, should immediately alert the German government and should immediately alert the British government and the British Parliament and the United States Department of Defense, the U.S. Department of State, U.S. State Department, U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, and the U.S. White House.
We will begin, though, by paying tribute to two heroes. First, Reverend Father Cosmas Ondari, who was serving in Mamfe Diocese, a Kenyan national. A Mill Hill Father in Kembong Parish. Until his life was cut short by gendarmes of La République, shooting indiscriminately when they drove past the church where he was serving this week. Father Ondari's mortal remains have been transferred to the mortuary in Awing, from whence they will head to Mother Kenya. We stop for a brief moment as well to pay tribute to General Ashu, who died this week. He was the commander of the Mpani team of the Tigers, based in the Southern Zone. He was one of those Tiger One describes as absolutely anxious to defend our people, uphold their dignity, fight for freedom and independence for Ambazonia. He died too young to enjoy that independence, but he gave his life that the rest of us may have it. May God rest their souls. We will return to both of these stories in the course of this program, but let us for now listen to this audio. A young, talented, and tremendously gifted Ambazonian put out this audio this week. We call it anonymous for now. It will run in lieu of our editorial, and it is about Amber Lives Matter.
I wasn't going to talk on this topic. I wasn't going to say I'm right with this topic, but it's right that we fight with this topic. We realign with this topic. I wasn't even going to shed light on this topic. Take a look at the firearms, the loss we carry in our arms, police brutality physically and with arms. Barry, barely 20 of age, struck down by a speedy military car, driving with rage. These deaths and losses ain't staged. Nora, pretty, intelligent, law student with a promising future, her life snatched from her like a snap for a picture. Another military truck in that accident featured. And yet the motto of the United Nations Cameroon is supposed to be, peace, work, fatherland, dear government. If you think the military trucks and arms you're sending, taking more innocent and involved lives is the best you're doing, then I think it's safe for me to say that your best is not good enough. Dear government, Anglophone lives matter. When I hear of the stray bullets that have taken our brothers and sisters away, purpose and destiny on forfeit, yet they are passed on to an early grave, this shouldn't be happening. Dear government, place your shoes in those of the family's mourning. Is there no better way for those big brains of yours to handle this matter? So this nation could again experience a fresh morning. 24 hours of our Monday stay heated. Villages in Manfe, Ekona, Moyoka, Bamenda evacuated. Bullet holes through houses, which have now been evacuated. Remind me again, how are we equated? How does this bring peace? Where are those whose family members have been killed? Are they not now in some bushes training and getting skilled? Some becoming even thieves? Are you not motivating them to become bullies? Dear government, we need peace. Anglophone lives matter. Our economy is burning down to ashes, yet hundreds of trucks of timber are being exported from our lands with military guidance from our bushes. Is the government now stealing from her own people? Or is the transportation of those many trucks of timber to ensure safety of the French side while war kills our Anglophone brothers and our economy? Is this the way to preach unity, or should we be even more bothered? Anglophone lives matter. Dear government, if you're doing your best, it's simply not good enough. Freedom of speech is one of the rights I learned to have. Has it been halved? Even in prison, human rights are important. See the man on the side lying on his side, please, taking his rights. Take a video for the whole world to see, please. I can't breathe. There's no reason for you to kill me. I'm lying on my side and you're choking me. Please, please, I can't breathe. If you don't feel safe because of your language and culture, of your side of the nation, and the government says it's okay for the police to shoot near human habitation, then the government's equal law for United Cameroon seems unclear. I can't breathe, so I can't make a sound. But the people who did lynchings, they have badges now, congrats. And the supposed progress that's happening, that's irrelevant now. Because I'm still scared for my brothers in the Anglophone zones, in the bushes. And it's not fair they're still there, under the hill, sleeping on stones. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm pretty good at the statistics I'm looking at. Damn, what's the Cameroonian government and police playing at? They've become too friendly with their triggers. They drive their cars like they are drunkards. And so I don't blame those that seek division. I blame the government who are seeing the Anglophone Cameroon as primitive and good only for low salary or pauper jobs, and not worth bearing with a little longer like a worried child that needs attention. What hope is there for an Anglophone's life when I can't breathe isn't enough? A sour situation. In a sour way. Sour, our days, our faces, we taste sour. Sour fruit falls. Good seed, turned sour. Sour fruit, ghost town, stray bullets, sour Cameroon, Anglophone lives matter.
We must go and use every forum that we have to remind the world that the people of Ambazonia are being massacred and slaughtered on a daily basis, and the time has come for the world to rise, and that the world must now begin to speak about the question of Ambazonia and their right to self-determination.
There are two Cameroons that came together. If you are telling us that what happened in Cameroon is like dropping a few cubes of sugar into a basin of water, who is the sugar and who is the water?
Doubting Thomases who think that this is a battle which will be concluded through military action will discover to their shock and chagrin at once that it will not happen.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner for the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until we have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling. Here now to get us all properly started is Bobe Innocentia with the first part of our news wrap-up for the week.
Chemical weapons, most likely sarin gas that devastates human nerves, has been used in the deaths of as many as 100 Ambazonians, as sources say in Balinyonga, Ambazonia's northern zone.
So this chemicals was utilized in Bali, and it was also utilized in Wum and also in Esu area, Esu area. These chemicals cause minor paresis and weaknesses, and that facilitate the La Republique to immediately shoot the citizens. So there is this ongoing chemical utilization by La Republique, and these chemicals is spread by the commander of the gendarmerie.
The traditional authority of Balinyonga, including two nobles of the palace whose names we withhold, as well as an official of Paul Biya's regime in Yaoundé, stand accused in the court of public opinion of leading Biya genocidal forces of La République du Cameroun to bushes and forests where vulnerable populations and some Amba boys may have been hiding.
Enormous material damage was recorded and several houses purportedly set ablaze by security forces. Equinox Television is yet to independently verify the veracity of that information, but we have reports from the ground as well that most of those localities have simply been deserted.
Forces of disorder burnt houses and cut off power lines Tuesday along the famous Savannah Street, Tikali and T quarters. Several deaths were registered on both sides, one reliable source stating that Ambazonia lost in the upwards of 100 boys from chemicals that a military helicopter blanketed over a suspected hideout.
They give them 10 drones last month. When they use Obamenda, the drone big like almost like plane. And they use naive for get all our camps them. And again as a special force with foreign military for the day inside for execute that mission, they come all over that mission, and they're proud for that meeting they hold this yesterday breaking today. They're proud for that meeting saying in 2-3 weeks time they will dissolve all we.
Eyewitnesses say there were loud explosions Saturday as some brave citizens dug mass graves into which they pushed the charred remains. Observers suspect that La République du Cameroun soldiers expected for Amba boys to come back and retrieve their fallen brothers and subsequently be killed by the explosions. Meantime, in MENCHUM, LEBIALEM state, the Red Dragons reportedly ambushed a convoy of La République du Cameroun soldiers Wednesday, destroying military hardware, including 3 military trucks, and claiming several lives. An eyewitness account claimed as many as 37 La République du Cameroun soldiers were killed in the fighting, but an intercepted message mentions 1 death and 14 wounded, even as fighting continued through Thursday in Menji and Azi. Cameroon has extended its streak of military assassinations of pastors and priests, killing Wednesday Reverend Father Cosmas Ondari in Kembong village, Manfe, MANYU State, in Ambazonia's southern zone.
I went to Kembong myself to meet the Christians there who were with Father in the mission at the time he was shot. They explained to me that there was a military vehicle that was coming into the village, and as they were driving into the village, they were shooting. Father tried to escape around the church, but when he was at the door of the church, the bullet got him. He fell there. The other Christians who managed to run away to the back of the church. There was a seminarian who was also there. They ran into the father's house, some ran into other places. But like yesterday, I was there, I counted myself 21 bullet holes on the front of the church.
So were the soldiers actually shooting into the church?
Yes, they were actually shooting into the church. If you go to the place like I did yesterday, you actually see some of the bullets that passed through the window and cracked the wall next to the altar.
The shooting killing of the Kenyan-born Reverend Father Cosmas brings to fore the summary executions of church ministers, including Reverend Father Sop, followed by a visiting Ghanaian pastor in Ambazonia's MOMO state, then a young seminarian by name Gerard Akiata, and Mr. Charles Wesco, the American Baptist missionary. The Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect has, in its latest November issue, denounced the use of disproportionate deadly force against Ambazonian civilians by La République du Cameroon. In addition to promising to hold to account all parties involved in extrajudicial killings, as well as calling for dialogue between La République du Cameroon and leaders of Ambazonia, the center calls on the African Union and the Economic Community of Central African States to engage with Cameroon before a further deterioration of the conflict. The responsibility to protect, R2P, is a global political commitment which was endorsed by all member states of the United Nations, including Cameroon, at the 2005 World Summit in order to address 4 key concerns to prevent genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity.
The international community cares about is whether at some point in time within all this madness there will emerge from our restoration quest a class of reasonable people who will seize control of this listing recognition ship and steer it back to the safe docks of diplomacy wherein exist all the powers we will need to elicit compliance from the recalcitrant Cameroon state.
In the meantime, the Ambazonia Recognition and Collaborative Council, ARC, has partnered with Project 77 in calling for the government of Sierra Leone to condemn the ongoing conflict between La République du Cameroon and Ambazonia so as to stop the metastasizing of the ongoing genocidal conflict. Edwin Gang, the representative of ARC, made the statement on the Sierra Leone leg of a multiple-country diplomatic mission, including Ghana.
The Ark of Ambazonia has since quietly set sail in pursuit of its mission in seeking the recognition of our sovereignty in the Republic of Ambazonia. You should also know that this mission is very consistent with the international community aspiration as to what they want from us. They have also pointedly told us that it will be in our best interest that the people of Ambazonia board the Ark of Ambazonia as the only reasonable option available to them given their limited options before that deadly pan-Cameroon genocidal doom trap is fully released. Edwin Gang for Ambazonia Calling on a diplomatic mission for ARC.
The Senate and Parliament of Rwanda has also acknowledged the diplomatic overtures of ARC, and the leading Rwandan publication granted an exhaustive interview to Morris spokesperson Ntumfoyn Herbert, highlighting why Rwanda, Rwandans, and President Kagame are historically positioned to play a pivotal role in the recognition of Ambazonia. Later today, the president of the Ambazonia Governing Council, AGC, and Commander-in-Chief of ADF Forces, Dr. Lucas Ayabacho, will be delivering a policy speech articulating another leg of internationalization of the Ambazonian struggle. I am Innocent Chia, and you're listening to Ambazonia Calling. We will be back with some more stories from the week.
You have plenty of show yet to come, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
The people of West Cameroon cannot be your slaves. The people of West Cameroon are not, you did not conquer them in war. The problem we have in West Cameroon is the problem that will bring down Cameroon. When people have had pent-up anger and pain, humiliation, for over 50 years, when it bursts out, you will never be able to control it.
They will sooner realize that the people of Ambazonia will not surrender. They will sooner realize that you can arrest and kill, but the more you arrest and kill, the more you energize the people's spirit.
Some of the breaking news this week involved the transfer from said to Nkondengi Central Prison of Siseko Yuktabe and 9 of his closest collaborators, the Nera Hotel 10, as he could call them.
Yes, interim government, they don't enter prison now. They Yuktabe them, they don't enter for the prison who did it now. They don't pay now, all them.
Those arrested in Taraba State and in Calabar continue to be held at said, but the arrival of Siseko Yuktabe and the other 9 at Nkondengi Central Prison provoked some excitement among Ambazonian prisoners.
No, it's fine now. They come to it's fine. So it tell with the level of pressure we did for the Republic skin. For move them for set, maybe easy thing. You get mad for the way they don't stay for set for close to 12 years. They never dream for move them for that place. If they move that people then it show the pressure we did for them. So are they for prison? I get hope now. It shows a true negotiation or independent they come.
Don't go anywhere, Bobe Innocent Chia. You've got a second part of the news wrap-up for the week.
ORG has released a 13-page report highlighting the most recent acts of genocidal violence exacted on Ambazonians by La République du Cameroun. It reminds the international community that Ambazonians will not back down from their right to demand restoration of independence, in spite of the fact that Cameroonian troops have intensified a ruthless campaign of massacres, extortion, human rights violations, hostage-taking, extrajudicial killings, and forced disappearances, kidnappings, genocidal violence, and forced starvation, and other acts of terror in a desperate attempt to break the will of campaigners for the restoration of the independence of Ambazonia. Several informed sources are alerting Ambazonians that armed militias put together and sponsored by ex-convict at Cameroon's Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanga, are preparing to stage a massive public surrender on camera. According to sources, these fake Amba boys will lay down their guns and claim that they have been deceived by Ambazonians in the diaspora and have now seen the light of day thanks to the appeal made by colonial Cameroon's President Paul Biya during his recent swearing-in speech. 3 influential groups in the restoration quest of Ambazonia are teaming up to launch the Ambazonia Relief Fund, ARF. The SCNC, Consortium, and APLM, formerly SCYL, are selling this as an alternative, all-encompassing, and transparent platform that will raise money and use money for the liberation of Ambazonia, a mission that obviously indicts actions of the treasury and leadership of the group known as the interim government. A predominantly Ambazonian business zone specialized in manufacturing high-end, handcrafted living and bedroom sets has been razed down to dust Thursday in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Losses are estimated in the hundreds of millions, with some observers seeing it as a targeted hit job. A lone fire truck not only had insufficient water when it arrived after the largely makeshift marketplace had already been engulfed in a consuming fire such as Yaoundé has never seen before. Finally, a police officer of La République du Cameroun reportedly beheaded by unidentified gunmen in KUPE State in Ambazonia Northern Zone. Take 2. Finally, a police officer was reportedly beheaded by unidentified gunmen in KUPE State in the Ambazonia Northern Zone last Monday. A source with ties to the family of Mr. Ephraim Ngafe, the slain officer, reportedly confided that the beheading was in spite of a ransom payment of 150,000 CFA francs to the kidnappers. Meantime, in Kumbo, another kidnapped police officer, Kinko Anthony, now enjoys freedom following an alleged ransom payment of 3 million CFA. I'm Innocent Chia for Ambazonia Calling.
When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes a duty.
You cannot defeat our brave soldiers because they are warriors in the land of their birth. They have courage, they have determination. They've got nothing more to lose.
Let us return one more time to that story about the assassination of Reverend Father Cosmas. There is a story by the regime, which is to say, there's a series of lies packaged as a story being sold by the regime. We will hear those lies, and then we will hear Bishop Nkea, the Bishop of Mamfe, narrate exactly what happened.
Project Division, MANYU subdivision, opened fire indiscriminately. It is in the course of the action that a priest by name Cosmas Ondore Oboto of Kenyan nationality, aged 33 years, residing at Kembong, died after receiving several bullets. His mortal remains was taken to the Manthe Annex Regional Hospital mortuary. The incident was not reported early enough to administrative and military authorities only on the morning of November 22nd, 2018, thus compromising a prompt operation as usual. An in-depth investigation was immediately opened following the regrettable incident. The preliminary investigation reveals that the authors of this criminal act did this in a guise to discredit the defense and security forces, as the secessionist activist Eric Tato, based in the United States of America, promised through an order to kill any foreigner found within the Northwest and Southwest region so as to draw the attention of the international community, which has not paid an attention to the crisis this far. In this vein, the minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense once again calls on all foreigners whose presence is veritably indispensable to inform administrative authorities and the defense and security forces of their movements in the Northwest and Southwest regions where terrorists and armed groups are causing chaos. To this effect, he exalts the population to collaborate with the defense and security forces.
It was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There were just a few Christians with the catechists who were cleaning the church. Father was standing in front of the church, and when they were passing, it looks like when they're entering the village, they're trying to scare people or what, I don't know. But as they were driving into the village, they were shooting at random, because after the mission, they continued shooting as they were going on to their barracks. The shooting did not stop at the church. They continued shooting. There was another man who also was shot, and he died.
It's quite shocking that they would be shooting into a church or at a church. Has this happened before?
It has happened in other places. I mean, the seminarian who died in Bamenda was shot in front of the church.
So has there been any official reaction to this? Is anybody going to be charged with the killing of Father Cosmas and the other person that died as well?
Just that you are talking from a distance, we are seeing deaths every day. Nobody is being charged. We will make some noise about this, but in the end, what will come out of it?
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out. Welcome, Professor Tatamenta, to the Devil Unmasked.
Thanks for your warm welcome, Ntumfoyn. Let us unmask how Lucifer Biapol evades punishment for his heinous crimes against the sovereign people of Ambazonia on the watch of the United Nations.
The UN has long called for an end to the carnage. They have expressed concern. Why don't they go beyond expressing concern?
Let me abbreviate my answer, Ntumfoyn. The contradictions of the United Nations are enormous and serve as an obstacle to bringing Lucifer Biapol to his shaking knees.
What are some of these contradictions?
When considering the United Nations, Ntumfoyn, it is important for me to start by recognizing what the United Nations is not. The United Nations is not a world government, since its members retain their sovereignty. It is an aggregation of governments and not a government in itself. Although at times it functions as a government, it certainly lacks some of the functions and powers of the government, such as the power to tax. And that is why its funds come from contributions of member states. And that is why the member states are not the people, are the supreme lawmakers. Consequently, it takes care more of member states and governments rather than the people. Lawmaking that will be binding to all member states and the teeth to discipline its members for violating its decisions and the Charter. Article 6, for example, of the Charter provides a sort of disciplinary mechanism in case of persistent violations. However, so far, it has not been applied to any member states in spite of blatant violations of the Charter by some member states like the United Nations or United States-led Coalition of the Willing, when they used force to invade Iraq in 2001, a sovereign member state.
How has the butcher of Vomaka been using these contradictions to his advantage?
Lucifer Biapol is clever. He uses the United Nations contradictions to his advantage, as you will see. Although the United Nations Charter disallows the use of force to settle disputes, it opens the door in Article 2 for its sovereign member states to defend what it calls territorial integrity. As the father of the worst killers and terrorists, Lucifer Biapol uses this power of sovereignty to grab loans and war materials from other member states of the United Nations. For example, since Lucifer Biapol declared war on Ambazonia on the 30th of November 2017, he has gone to China 3 times and secured military equipment costing some 7.3 billion United States dollars. Just the other day, Lucifer Bia signed military pacts with the Saudi Arabians for more dilapidated arms with which to exterminate Ambazonians.
So there must be other parts of the Charter that Mr. Bia also exploits, right?
Yes, indeed. In the last part of the preamble of the United Nations, it clearly presents who created this organization, and I quote Ntumfoyn. Accordingly, our respective governments, through representatives assembled in the city of San Francisco, who have exhibited their full powers found to be in good and due form, have agreed to the present Charter of the United Nations and do hereby establish an international organization to be known as the United Nations. Thus, the preamble simply affirms that the states and governments are the only important actors in the United Nations. And that is why I call it united nonsense, because it excludes the people. That is why it is very difficult to apply Article 6, which can mean expulsion to an important actor or actors in the organization. Israel has exploited this loophole or contradictions repeatedly and gone unpunished. I guess it is the same thing Lucifer Biapol is cleverly exploiting to carry out the decimation, the looting, the arsons, the rapings, what have you, extortions and so on in Ambazonia.
So with all of these loopholes that Mr. Bia is exploiting, what do you recommend for the people of Ambazonia?
Ntumfoyn, I immediately recommend a pedagogy of liberation for the oppressed people of Ambazonia. This pedagogy of liberation is inspired by Mwalimu Julius Nyerere's Arusha Declaration in 1967. The pedagogy of education for liberation marks a turning point in the politics of education and points to such values as the following. 1. All human beings are equal, and that is why Ambazonians reject the second-class status assigned to them by the Satanic Republic of Cameroon. Secondly, Ntumfoyn, every citizen is an integral part of the nation and has the right to take an equal part in government. Ambazonians, as you can understand, can never accept the politics of explosion, marginalization, and naming of the Satanic Republic of Cameroon. Thirdly, Ntumfoyn, every citizen has the right to freedom of expression, of movement, of religious belief and association within the context of law. Ambazonians will no longer abide the brutal terrorist raids or Calais of French Republic, which we know very well. Fourthly, every individual has the right to receive from society protection of life and of property held according to law. That is why Ambazonians today reject the barbaric extrajudicial murders by the Satanic Republic of Cameroon. And finally, Ntumfoyn, every citizen together possess all of the natural resources of the country in trust of their descendants. This is why Ambazonians are fighting to the last man standing to make sure that French Cameroon does not use their natural resources to trade for arms, favors, and peanuts for merchants of death like Saudi Arabia, France, and the Chinese.
And there must be an entire litany of additional burdens and failures of the United Nations, right?
Understandably, Ntumfoyn, burdensome reporting requirements, overlap between and within organs, an unwieldy and duplicative architecture for implementation, and gap between mandates and resources. The identification of these problems by the United Nations itself can be interpreted as an admission of fatal failures of the organization.
Do you have a word for Ambazonians and the rest of the world in what are really dark moments?
Certainly, Ntumfoyn. My word is singularly that the restoration of the total independence of Ambazonia is irreversible, and anyone thinking otherwise does not belong to that beautiful land, the land of great people, by the grace of God, yet to make it to the strongest and why not the most peaceful, democratic, and prosperous nation in Africa, and by extension, the world.
Well, that is all what we've got time for today. Thank you very much, Professor Tatamenta. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Reverend, for having me. Aluta continua, Victoria, etc.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Because you have your army of occupation out in West Cameroon, you believe that when the people will rise, even if you took the whole of the French army and added to yours, you will never bring them down.
And I call on all Cameroon soldiers to lay down their arms within Ambazonia and to turn their arms against the very system that has made them slaves in the land of their birth.
Ok. Voilà la situation qui prévaut à Jacqueline actuellement. Voilà les policiers. Nous sommes dehors. Nous sommes abandonnés à nous-mêmes. Le commissariat vient d'être brûlé par les Amba. Nous avons dû laisser, suite à des multiples attaques qui nous poussent. Et nous sommes blessés chaque jour que Dieu a créé. Et nous sommes aussi attaqués chaque jour que Dieu a créé. Donc, nous sommes venus.
Here's what's happening in Jacqueline. We are police officers, abandoned by our hierarchy. We are homeless. The police station was burned down by Amber boys. We deserted after multiple daily attacks that have left us injured. We attacked each day that the Lord has made. We ran here to the Gendarmerie Brigade. We thought we were coming home, but we are instead persona non grata here. Here are belongings outside, the bags and mattresses. We will spend the night outdoors today. We don't know for tomorrow. We are sending this video for the attention of our regional boss. Our lives are really at risk. We are not deserting. We applied for the police job we said we had the honor to serve. But if we could be taken away, taken off duty from here now, and be brought back only when peace and calm has returned. Because here we are rejected. We have not eaten for the last 3 days. We don't loot shops to find something to eat. We are not thieves. And for the last 3 to 4 months, we have not had a salary. And we don't have any allowance. We are really desperate. We are in desperate need of help. Because this is more than we can bear.
Nous ne sommes pas des voleurs. Voilà pourquoi on se fie à la hiérarchie. Il n'y a pas moyen. Voilà 3 mois et demi, 4 mois que nous n'avons pas de salaire et on n'a pas de primes comme les autres. Donc nous sommes tellement comme ça là. Voilà pourquoi on fait cette vidéo. Vous voyez comment nous sommes, je ne sais même pas comment dire. Donc, voilà la situation qui prévaut. Voilà ce qui prévaut vraiment. Nous, on veut de l'aide. On veut vraiment de l'aide. C'est plus que nous. Merci.
There are those of you who feel, why am I supporting a cause whose end cannot be predicted? Do not feel tired. There are those of you who think that the enemy is too strong. Do not feel tired. Those of you who read the Bible, the only reason why David killed Goliath is because while everybody thought that he was too big to defeat, David knew that he was too big to miss. And I have my own conclusion that indeed that is how we should feel.
To come back to the one state is impossible because it doesn't work. We've seen it in Yugoslavia, we see it today in Cameroon. You can't put people who are so hostile to each other in one state.
The good book teaches us that there is a time for everything, a time to sow and a time to harvest, a time to live and a time to die. Here is Willibrod Ade with a major announcement on the higher emergency alert level at which Ambazonia lives at this very moment.
Emergency management authorities the world over make use of color and number codes to communicate the gravity of a threat or emergency that they are dealing with. Of all those codes, there is one, Code 13, that is generally used to signify that the situation is dire. Today, Ambazonia Calling is declaring a Code 13 alert regarding our recognition quest, given the constant cyber warfare that has been taking place between different groups engaged in this our intifada. So, our appeal to all of us involved in this revolution is that before you post anything, an audio, a video, or written message, ask yourself the following. Is this going to help kick out the colonizer from our land? Is this going to help us gain international recognition? Is this going to help our suffering people on ground zero? If your answer is no to any question, then don't do it. Willibrod Ade for Ambazonia Calling.
Several projects are ongoing to support internally displaced Ambazonians and Ambazonians based in refugee camps in neighboring Nigeria. Please find one of these projects wherever you live. There's one next to you. Find one and support it, especially as we go towards Christmas. A number of them are really remarkable. A few of them are touched on in this report by the monk, Vidzekov himself.
Before 2016 in the Cameroons, no one would have imagined that 2 years later there would be thousands of Cameroon's citizens registered as refugees in Nigeria, and millions more internally displaced in the Cameroons.
Last year, we only had children in the refugee camps. This year, we have displaced children internally in Ambazonia, southern Cameroons.
These numbers have not gone unnoticed.
These children are sacrificing, these families are sacrificing, our brave warriors on ground zero are sacrificing and suffering so that we, our children, our great-grandchildren, tomorrow for posterity would have a better life. So I'm coming to you today to beg. I'm really begging. Yes, I'm a beggar for our Amba children. Let us put our heads together, our hands together, and give them a little bit of Christmas.
What seems to be passing under the radar is the relentless daily butchering of citizens of British Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia by a Franco-Cameroonese machinery set up for this purpose. Given the circumstances, schools not operating, Franco-Cameroon armed agents hunting citizens to kill,
I send great salute to our great Amba warriors, the boys and girls who continue to make us proud. Without them, we would remain slaves forever. They have stood their grounds, they are spilling their blood for us. The little we can do this Christmas is to take care of their children.
Given these circumstances, a few initiatives have been launched by the UNCHR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Nigeria, the Red Cross, and other non-profit humanitarian organizations like the Aya Foundation, for example.
Yeah, to our brothers in El Paso, we are able to do this wonderful job we're doing today at the refugee camp, thanks to the wonderful support we are getting from you people. We are not able to do this without the wonderful support coming from people like you. There are other groups that have come in, but we really appreciate the support coming in from our brothers in El Paso.
But this is not enough and will not stem the problems that have been created by this crisis, especially if we focus on the people concerned.
This project has nothing to do with what group you are affiliated to. It's a human feeling that I'm bringing to you. It doesn't matter what group you belong to. It doesn't matter your ethnic affiliation. It doesn't matter. Just for humanity, do something.
Similar events around the world that have pushed large communities to run to safety have triggered resettlement programs by benevolent countries like the US, the UK, and so on. In a recent UK House of Lords session, Ambazonians were hopeful once again when the subject of Ambazonia was brought to the floor by Lord Boateng. Other subsequent speakers in the House suggested a resettlement program for refugees from Ambazonia. This is very important for the following reason. With no functional schools in Ambazonia for 3 years now, with families running from the shooting, abductions for ransom, extrajudicial killings by armed government gendarmes of the Franco-Cameroonese junta, the education of children is also under arrest, and a prolonged out-of-school period can only but stunt the intelligence of these kids for the foreseeable future. A deliberate resettlement program with the objective of helping Ambazonia families regroup themselves and continue the business of educating their children will be a very helpful counter to the devious project of the butcher of Mvomeka to kill butcher citizens of Ambazonia for no justified reason under the sun. Ambazonian citizens should be resettled as Ambazonia refugees, with the goal of reuniting families and enabling their children to continue their education in a more or less stable environment, while the politricksters and warriors bring an end to the devilish enterprise of the butcher of Mvomeka. The ancestors of Ambazonia and the children are watching and waiting to return to a peaceful Ambazonia.
So that is it from the refugee camp in Ogoja.
This is the monk from Ibalikumato, Vadrukov himself, for Ambazonia Calling.
What we seek is freedom, and we must conduct ourselves with the highest degree of integrity towards our friends and towards our foes. We cannot use the same methods that the occupier has used against us.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Calacuta Republic of commentary, opinion, and editorials. As part of our education and sensitization series here at Ambazonia Calling, here's a paper on self-defense and the right to self-defense, one that we air as a reminder and as a public service.
No matter the nature of the unjust war they face, Ambazonians must stick with self-defense. What Ambazonians must resist getting involved with is retributive killings. Self-defense is often, by nature, violent. It is one of the rare forms of justified violence. Article 51 of the United Nations Charter addresses legitimate individual or collective self-defense within the framework of collective security. However, and as Ambazonia Calling has stressed in so many of our editions, self-defense can neither be an excuse nor a justification for committing criminal or illegal acts. Therefore, all AMBA self-defense groups must not do anything unreasonable or excessive. Ambazonians are living in the same horror that the French visited on Guinea-Conakry, when it became clear to Paris that neither military might, political persuasion, economic sanctions, international isolation would cause Guinea or stay a part of the French community of Africa. As the ANC's burning spear, Nelson Mandela practiced the model of sabotage that was needed to blunt the negative effect of apartheid on the black people. The kind of sabotage Ambazonians should limit themselves to, taking down the infrastructure of annexation. Both the BOYO regime and the international community continue to deny Ambazonians avenues for addressing their problems through legislation, politics, law, strikes, protest. Under those circumstances, and from all time and in all countries, the aggrieved people have no choice but defy the colonialist or imperialist by breaking unjust laws. We must act like Mandela did, with discipline and in nonviolence, except when imposed by the supreme duty of survival through self-defense. Ambazonians know that freedom is not free. America's revolution was purchased from colonial Britain with the blood of no fewer than 50,000 Americans. In both South Sudan and Eritrea, the death toll was a combination of 2 million killed. The death tolls in Eritrea and South Sudan, as in Ambazonia, are caused by state terrorism, defined as the use of official violence to intimidate, to kill those who hold contrary political views. Ambazonians know that theirs is a just war according to the criteria laid out in 1625 by Hugo Grotius, who defined 3 just causes for war: defense, recovery of what's our own, and punishment. The United Nations has so far failed Ambazonians by refusing to enforce the prohibition of the use of force or violence for resolving the international dispute between Cameroon and Ambazonia, which was used to uphold Kuwait's sovereignty after Iraq invaded. The United Nations has failed to uphold Article 2 of its charter, which prohibits even the threat of using force or violence in international relations. Self-defense is best exercised by adopting no aggressive posture. Often, and much to the surprise of the eye for an eye approach, it is victimhood. It is peaceful, legal, non-violence resistance to barbarians like the BOYO regime that ends up revolting the world, turning the tide against them and bending the arc of justice towards the enslaved people.
We understand their Tanganjis and their collaborators are plotting and scheming within Ambazonia to give us a bad name. And we have made it clear they can kidnap, they can abduct. Ambazonians will never be tagged as terrorists because we conduct ourselves in the highest sense of the discipline, following the code of conduct laid down by our defense forces, understanding the spirit of the 4 Geneva Conventions on the laws of war.
Restoration train is going to restoration train. Restoration train is going to restoration train. Restoration train is sailing restoration train on the restoration journey of our liberty. So get on now on the train. Everybody get on now on the train. Mothers, fathers, get on now on the train. Children, get on now on the train. Sister, brothers, get on now on the train. Husbands, wives too, get on now on the train.
When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes a duty. We, the people of West Cameroon, will resist you, and if you want to take that territory by force, you will kill to the last man before you take it.
There will be no negotiation with the BR regime. We will battle them block by block until we bleed them out of our homeland. Define the nature of the termination of the occupation of our homeland.
We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfuka of the Week. Here now is Veronique Vetimfe with the rundown of Kings and Queens of Foolish for this week.
The third place finisher this week is the liar-in-chief of the Biya regime. He was on BBC this week, lying through his nose, singing for his lunch. As during previous media outings when he lied about Malian soldiers executing women and their toddlers, the fellow joined his colleague of the Ministry of Defense in accusing Eric Tato for the assassination of Mill Hill priest and Kenyan national Reverend Father Cosmos Odari. Even as the regime's king of lies, Issa Chiroma obliterated his own record on hatching and telling outrageous falsehoods, thereby earning the third place on the Crown of Shame Award, the Nyamfuka of the Week. Nyamfuka them all. Our second place finisher would have been hard to miss. He is the colonial governor appointed by imperialists in Paris and Yaoundé to lord it over Ambazonia's northern zone. This week he went on Lai CRTV to accuse Ambazonia fighters of looting and burning down their own property. He said Amber boys are killing Amber boys and terrorizing their parents and siblings, burning down their own villages and killing the very neighbors so many of them are risking their lives to defend. For trying to pin regime war crimes on Amber boys, Lele Lafrique is this week's runner-up for the Crown of Shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week. Nyamfuka them all. Winning the crown, and very deservingly so, is the one man in the revolution whose sick and dirty words could be coming out of his asshole, not his mouth. It has been clear for a while that it takes a not-so-mild form of mental degradation to contemplate, talk less of promise a genocide worse than Rwanda. This week he took foolishness to new heights, proving that with such a foul mouth, you never say never again. For dropping more bombs with every word he utters, for seemingly enjoying the gift of latrine mouth, and for painting this revolution as the movement of a radical few instead of the non-violent majority, willing to be more inclusive and work across the aisle. Chris Anu is this week's undisputable winner of the Crown of Shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week. Them all. This is Veronique Vetimfe for Ambazonia Calling.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. I saw your colonial police force running around in tatters. They're already in tatters. We're less than 1 year into the war. You pompously declared a war that you are not prepared to fight. You have the police force without a station. This is in Jakiri. This is where the police used to draw the line in the sand and dare Honorable Joseph Weber to cross that line. Now they cannot even cross the line back into their police station. They are running away helter-skelter before the war has been 1 year old. And they are running to their friends at the gendarmerie, and they wouldn't even open the door for them. They wouldn't even welcome them. Isn't there supposed to be a law in your La République that says, non-assistance à personne en danger? They're supposed to open their door. After all, these Amber boys may be coming after them. Are these gendarmes that wicked? They're not quick to open the door. They're only quick to open fire on people. Like they open fire on every seminarian they see, every priest, every bishop. I understand you went to the seminary and you didn't make it. It was not their fault. You don't have to kill every one of them.
I mean, focus, Joshua. You declared a war. You said you were ready to fight it. Now your police force doesn't even have a police station. They don't even have way to sleep. They don't even have food. They said they're not eating for 4 days. They're going around with injuries. They have not even been treated for their injuries. And they have a 3 to 4 month salary arrears that you have not paid, Joshua. What kind of war is that? I mean, you're fighting a war against your warriors in Nsolan, where they're running away, and the gendarmerie cannot help them, except, of course, the gendarmerie down in Kembong is going around and looking for missionaries to kill, like the gendarmerie in Bambui going around and looking for missionaries to kill, and then turn around and say, well, it's not us who did it. What a shame, Joshua. Shouldn't you have known in advance that when I declare a war, that means I've got to be ready? I mean, in the Republic of Bread and Sardine, when all the police just want to eat bread and sardine, isn't that easy to provide? I mean, it's true they have looted all the shops now. There should not be any bread and sardine left. So what's next? Now that you've driven everyone into the bush, what's next? What are you going to do? The stores are not going to be stocked anymore. There's going to be nothing for them to steal. I mean, they were confessing in the video. We'll thank them for the video. They were confessing in the video that they don't usually loot any shops. I mean, when they have looted every shop, what's there to loot anymore? There's nothing left. So they don't have anything to loot. By the way, Joshua, everyone now knows what's going to happen with the Africa Cup of Nations. You're not going to host it. And that's because, you don't know how to do jack. You don't know how to get a country ready for anything. If you were getting the offer today to host the World Cup in the year 3000, you're not going to be ready, Joshua. Let's just admit it. I know a term we could use to describe that, Joshua, when you mess up so much. It's called la force de l'incompétence. These things, they just come to you naturally, that you mess up, that you don't know what to do, that you don't know from which foot to dance. Did you see those crowds that went out to welcome Professor Maurice Kamto coming back from Ethiopia? But all those crowds that show up to welcome Professor Maurice Kamto, they must make you feel so often, Joshua. They must make you feel like, I won, but I didn't win. I won the ballot, but I didn't win the people. I can govern the presidential palace, but not the country. If there was a television series on you, it would probably read, Everybody Hates Bia. That would be a very good title. That's a series that Professor Mendoza could write, and it could be filmed right there in prison with the aid of Amadou Varmuke. Charles Nongo could work as an external consultant until he gets admitted into the University of Nkondengi, which is where you're going to. And by the way, why did you take Ambazonian and Ambazonian leaders into your filthy prison in Nkondengi? Don't you know Ambazonians are supposed to be, if they're going to jail, they're supposed to go to jail in BOYO and Bamenda? Have you not learned anything yet, Joshua? Have you not understood that all this stuff about deportation is exactly what Hitler did with the Jews? Don't you realize that we don't recognize your bloody country and that we don't care for your citizenship? Why are you forcing it on us? Must we accept it? You think we are like the policemen who were saying gel honneur? We signed gel honneur. No, we did not. In our case, we have the dishonor to reject you and reject your country and reject your nationality. Now I've said my piece. Please don't bother to reply. I don't read letters from you. But I'll be sending you another one next Sunday. You have been listening to Ambazonia Calling. We came to you from our studios here in Washington, D.C. Our producers today, Jeff McCoy, Logistics, Joe Costa, and Chrisa Cunningham. Our music is from Ken Wanaku, the monk, from Balikumato Vatsukov himself, from William Ford, an Amber music star of blessed memory, from Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.org, and from Prince Ajwa Alem of Ajam, Sonicatron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at missionstribune.com at compassfreepress.com and at africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another date. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the good fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.